All right. Well, hello, everyone. This is Rebecca Dallin. I'm the Assistant Superintendent here, Stormwater Quality for the City of Oklahoma City. We've got some online guests as well as some in-person folks. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. Hope everyone has a tasty lunch. I know ours was tasty here. I hope everyone's ready to hear from our guest speaker. We'll begin momentarily, so I want to provide a little bit of information to help everyone's online experience in order to reduce the background noise. We ask that everyone keep themselves muted during the presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to type them into chat, or we can open the mic later. We are going to be emailing certificates of attendance to everyone who is signed in person and all the virtual attendees. We'll download the attendance roster after the event. We are also recording this. You should be able to see that for the online attendees if you rejoin the calendar event later. If your system doesn't allow it for some reason, that's fine. Just email myself and I'll be happy to get you a link to that recording. So I'd like to actually just go around the room here and have everyone introduce themselves real quick, if that's okay. The microphone's up here, so speak loudly if you're in the back of the room. Go ahead right here.
I'm Corey. I'm with the City of Newcastle.
I live in City of Newcastle.
I'm Barry Lodge, the
Bridge and Drainage Engineering Manager for the City of Oklahoma City.
Sasha McCrum, City of Oklahoma City.
Craig Fryer, City of West City. Oh, right. County Government. Jason Murphy, Stormwater Program Manager, City of
Michelle Loudback, Environmental and Sustainability Manager, City of Norton.
Keith Page, City Manager.
Jeff Byron, City Manager. With a technology. And Chris Stewart, Oklahoma City Stormwater Quality.
All right, great. We've got several people online. You can see, I think, the attendees there. Have the people up on the screen. So again, welcome everyone. So today we're going to hear from Dustin Dunagan of Stormwater Systems. Dustin has over 5 years experience in technical sales and business development. He is also a lifelong outdoorsman and fisherman with a passion for keeping our waterways clean and safe, both now and for generations to come. A graduate of Carson Newman University, he holds a bachelor's degree in biology. Stormwater Systems, the sponsor, was founded in Cleveland, Georgia, with the goal of providing products and services for the removal of litter, debris, and other pollutants from our world's natural waterways. Now we are removing tons of floating and non-floating litter to preserve and ensure a future of clean water and capture litter before it reaches our oceans. Again, if anyone online has any questions during the presentation, please be sure to type them into chat. And Dustin, go ahead and share your screen and begin your presentation if you would.
All righty. Thanks, Rebecca. And I just want to say thank you for everybody in person and online taking a few minutes to come learn a little bit about our systems. I'll try to get through this relatively quickly so you can get back to the stuff that you really enjoy doing there at the office. But with that said, I'll go ahead and jump over, get this thing started here, and should be good. Can everybody, can we see the screen?
Yes.
Great. So just to kind of give you a little bit of background, Rebecca talked a little bit about it. We got started back in 2006 with just the thought of wanting to do something about the ever-growing trash problem. We have two businesses here under the same roof, one being Stormwater Systems, the one that does the litter traps. But our parent company is a company called Plastic Works. They've been doing industrial plastics fabrication, mainly chemical containment systems, tanks, piping, all that sort of good stuff for the past 30 years. Plastics is our specialty, and we wanted to use our plastics background to manufacture something to help remove trash and other floating debris from our waterways. All of the flotation booms that you'll see, that's all HDPE, 12-inch diameter HDPE pipe. All of that is welded and fabricated in our shop in Cleveland, Georgia. And all of the metal work that you will see in the next few pictures, it's all powder coated aluminum. And all of the aluminum welding is done at a local ISO 9001 certified facility. We've been accused before of having a guy out back that welds and puts these things together. There's a lot of engineering that goes into this. We powder coat them as a theft deterrent, and I'll kind of get into a little bit more why in the next few pictures here. But the units are very, very simple in the way that they operate. They're anchored in place with 6 anchor points, 2 out front, 2 out to the side, and 2 off the back. Of course, the diagram doesn't quite show the ones in the back, but it sits and just skims the surface of the water. The deepest part of the trap is the collection area here. This back gate sits about 6 to 8 inches under the water. So we're not interfering with wildlife in any way. They can freely swim back and forth. We're not interfering with hydrology. We're not slowing water down, and we haven't seen any bank scouring issues with any of our units. We currently have, I want to say we're now at 26 units across the United States, with at least 4 more units going in the next about 4 months. One of them being our first in Oklahoma at the Tinker Air Force Base over in Tulsa. We've been working on that one for about 1.5 years now, I believe, and we're really excited to get that one in. I will go ahead and jump to the next slide. How it works, we kind of talked a little bit about it, but it simply just skims the surface of the water, collecting floatables, funneling the trash and other debris into the collection area. They are designed for either 100-year or 500-year rain events. Basically, we want to make sure that the trap is able to rise up and down with the water level, regardless of what the flows are. We typically always do 100-year events, but over the last few years, with the intensity of storms that we've seen, a lot of engineers have been pushing more for the 200-300-year event, with the 500-year typically being about the maximum. Again, it's just skimming the surface of the water. There are tidal gates, and I'll be able to show you, just so I can jump back this diagrams a little bit better. I know that in Oklahoma, you guys don't really have to deal with tidal issues up there, but if your channel may be influenced by dam, sometimes the waters can reverse back and forth. The tidal gate basically just opens and closes depending on which way the water flows. So whatever trash is captured in the collection area stays there, and any other trash would just kind of stay suspended out into the booms until the water reverses flow, and then it'll just continue filling up the trap. Anchoring options, we have a few different anchoring options. The main one being our standard ground anchor, which is a 12-inch diameter, 5-foot deep rebar reinforced concrete plug is what I call it basically. We pour all of those, and the traps do have a specific velocity range at which they work the best. And that's typically anywhere that's around about 1 foot per second up to 9 feet per second. That's linear surface velocity, not cubic feet per second. And that's just for your standard 1 to 2 inches of rain. I'm not saying for these 100-year events that you have to try to find a channel that's 1 to 9 feet per second in a 200 or 300-year event. That doesn't happen usually. So all we're looking for this velocity range is just for your standard rainfalls. What is it made out of? It's made entirely out of corrosion resistant materials. We have our partner in stormwater systems. These traps originated in Australia, a company called Bandalong International. We partnered with them back in 2006. And before we partnered with them, they had been installing these units for about 15 years or so before we picked them up. So they have some units that have been in for now over close to 30 years on some of their large rivers down there. And our longest one's been in since 2008. That just goes to show the materials make a big difference when it comes to installing something in a channel that takes these sort of abuse that these traps can. But again, all of the green that you see is the powder coated aluminum. We powder coat them as a theft deterrent. Our first trap back in 2008 was in Washington, D.C. in one of the national parks. And when we arrived on site that morning, there was actually, we were installing it just in front of a bridge with a couple of box culverts. And in one of the box culverts, somebody had just recently robbed a bank and came down and threw the money bag down, and they had police tape and all that sort of good stuff out there. And we thought that if we put this shiny aluminum out here, again, this is right kind of at the height of the recession of 2008, 2009, we thought that the trap would get cut up and sold for scrap. And we took that idea back to our Australian partners, and they told us we were ridiculous. You know, we're adding extra cost into something that was already relatively expensive to begin with. But they kind of end up had to eat crow after they said that. About 2 months later, they had one of their traps cut up and sold for scrap over in Malaysia. So ever since then, we've never been questioned about the powder coating. HDPE, high density polyethylene, again, that's all of the flotation booms. One of the great things, or a couple of great things about the HDPE, number one, it's extremely durable. And number two, it has a 2.3% carbon black UV stabilizer in the material, which is the same carbon black stabilizer that's in your car tires. And we unfortunately know how long those can last. All the hardware is stainless steel. That's for the all of the connection points, the T-pins, security screws, and of course, all of the cable that runs along the length of the booms up to all of the anchors, all stainless steel. 304 or 3/16, depending on what type of water you're in. All of the traps have universal joints at each point that the booms connect. And basically what this allows for is the booms to be able to flex up and down, left and right. And this serves really well handling some of the turbulence of the channel, as well as with trees. We get a big question with trees. Fortunately, since we've been installing these, we haven't had any major damage due to trees. They usually do a couple things, just come down and get caught up kind of in the mouth of the trap, or with the way that the booms flex because of the universal joints, they'll just come down, push the boom down, and continue on downstream. We've only had really one issue with a tree. It came down and bent the front structural of our very first pilot install back in 2006. And all of the traps are modular, so that front beam was disconnected and a new piece reattached within a few hours. How are they cleaned and maintained? Really depends on which area you're in and what you have access to. Our customers in Washington, D.C., where they currently have, I want to say they have 6 in D.C. itself, and I think another 2 or 3 in Maryland and Virginia in the surrounding counties. They actually clean them out by hand, as well as our trap in downtown Atlanta that's maintained by the Chattahoochee Riverkeeper. They all clean them out by hand. Not only do they just clean it out, but they take the time to sort and categorize everything that they find. They have a whole system that they go through for categorizing the trash. I've been down with the Riverkeeper, I think, on 3 different cleanouts now, and even when they were at their fullest, it's taken us no more than about 45 minutes, and that's with just me and him. One other time we had a third guy, but still took about the same amount of time by hand. Vacuum trucks, they work phenomenal. Their biggest drawback is going to be the size of your hose. From what we've seen, the typical hose sizes are 8-inch diameter up to about 12 inches. And ultimately, you're going to catch things in these traps that you wouldn't believe would end up in traps. We've caught Volkswagen Beetles, porta potties. In one of our traps, they caught a prosthetic limb. So it's all sorts of stuff that can wind up in these things. And ultimately, the hose is going to prevent you from getting some of that stuff. The most common way to maintain the traps is the internal basket that comes with the trap. And you can see in the picture here to the right, basically the basket sits in the empty cavity here. When the trash comes down, it basically just fills up the basket. The process of cleaning it out is I don't know if you can really see it here. I might have to jump back, so I apologize for the confusion. But there's this drop down gate that you can just see here in this picture. And the process of cleaning this trap out would be somebody would walk out, lower that drop down gate to prevent any trash from pushing into the collection area. Once the gate is down, the basket's lifted out, it's open on one end. The basket itself is very, very light. It's maybe only about 250 pounds. And then completely full of trash, you're looking at somewhere between 1,000, 1,500 pounds max, with the majority of that weight being water weight. So a lot of our customers, they'll just lift it out of the water, let it sit and drain for a minute or two, and then take it over. And they have a crew of guys that can just bump one end of the basket, dump all the trash out, set it back in place, lift that gate back up, and then the water just pushes the trash back into the basket, and the process is repeated, of course, until the trash is cleaned out. And then the quickest way that we've seen one of our customers do it up in Boston was he actually got tired of using the basket, and he had an old backhoe bucket. He torched the teeth off, cut some holes into it, and he simply just reaches in and scoops the trash out from the collection area and then from the front of the booms. Clamshell buckets are also an option. We can modify the back end of the trap to be wide enough to allow the claw to go down in and fully open up and close and lift the trash out. So there are several different ways that can be maintained. The benefits of the trap, other than, of course, being a litter trap, is it doesn't interfere with wildlife. Again, wildlife can freely swim about. There's actually a funny story of one of our installs out in, there was one in Mobile and there was one in Huntington Beach, California, where in Mobile they had crocodiles or alligators, can't remember which one, kind of floating around the trap as they were trying to get it installed. And then out in California, their thing was manatees and sharks while they were trying to get it installed. And they thought that because of the sharks, they deserved hazard pay. Of course, they didn't end up with that, but they definitely tried. They raise awareness. One of the biggest things that we see personally is there's just a lack of trash awareness. A lot of the times people will go out to their parks in greenways, and if it's a well kept up area, of course the county does a good job at keeping the trash relatively picked up. So people say, we really don't have a trash problem. They may see a bag here or a bottle there in the river and think nothing of it, but they're not out there when it rains and all of your streets flush out, all of your inlets flush out into the river, and in some cases there could be literally a river of trash. And of course, then the rain ends, all that stuff goes downstream. People come back out to the park, wherever it may be. And unless there's a trap similar to the Bandalong or a tree that's fallen across the channel for that trash to back up on, a lot of the times they'll never see it. So they're just totally and completely unaware. And the Bandalong, more than anything, kind of has a wow factor. You look at it, and you're like, whoa, what is that? What's it do? So they do a great job, not only as a litter trap, but as an educational device as well. All of the traps come with a double-sided sign that can have whatever clean water message you want to have on it. This one's working towards a trash-free Anacostia. My personal favorite is one of our Australian partners' signs say something similar to, this is your tax dollars at work, quit throwing your trash, or put your trash where it goes, or something like that. Again, we're not interfering with hydrology. Custom sign. And any partner that was a part of it can have their logo. We have a local sign shop here in Cleveland that does all of our sign work, and they do a really, really good job. Our Bandit, this is actually one of our newest products. We came out with it about a year and a half ago. And since then, we've been undergoing a couple of pilot projects with the University of Georgia. After about a year of testing, they actually like the trap so much, they're purchasing 2 more to go on campus at UGA. And then the city of Athens, which is the city that UGA is in, is actually purchasing one as well to just go off of campus. So we're going to have four of these traps right in the UGA area. And of course, we have a couple of these other traps, Bandits, scattered across the U.S. But these are great for pilot projects and proof of concept projects for our larger traps. The biggest thing, of course, that separates them is, of course, the size. Just for reference, so you kind of have an idea, this trap that you see here on the right is our most common size. It's what we consider our small size. It's about 8 feet wide by 16 feet long. And again, this is probably the unit we use in, I would say, over 80% of our installations. To get to the larger sizes, you need to have some really, really significant flows or really, really significant debris loads to warrant a trap of that size. But we do have them. And actually, San Antonio has one of our largest traps. We installed it a few years ago. And just so you kind of have an idea, this is the one that they got is what we consider our double XL. And it's about, I think it's right about 16 foot wide by 52 feet long. It's just the size different there. That one's massive. It can actually hold about 9,000 to 10,000 pounds of debris. So you can basically go park a full-size pickup truck in the large trap and it will still float it. But our bandits, these were designed again for the pilot projects, but also with transportation in mind, to be able to try out, a few different areas if you'd like to. This one's about 3 foot wide by 5 foot long. You can fit the entire trap body itself and all of the booms. Typically only have about 20 to 40 feet of booms at most. And all of those can fit in the standard bed of a pickup truck. The trap body is made entirely out of HDPE, the same thing our Bandalong booms are made out of. And we do 100% of the fabrication for that as well in our shop. And then, of course, all of the powder coating is done at the same facility that does all for our Bandalongs. And another thing about these traps versus the Bandalongs, we do all of the installations for the Bandalongs. They're very, very technical and requires us to do the work. The bandits, they're much, much easier. Typically, we will only send one installation technician out to assist a crew of your people to do the installation. And then usually any subsequent traps after that, your crew could install, put it together and install it as well. The anchors are completely different than what the Bandalong are. These just have two anchor points that comes off the front, and they can be anchored to trees, or in a lot of instances, we'll just use a standard fence post. And the other thing about this trap is we kind of have a limit on channels that we will put them in, just to keep them from being overwhelmed in a channel that's just too large for it. We like to see a maximum of about 25 to 30 feet wide. And this one has a little bit lower working velocity range of about 1 to 6 feet per second. The traps will handle much, much higher flows than that. We've been through several tropical storms and hurricanes on the east, west coast, as well as down in Mobile. And all of our traps have fared very well up until this point. So fingers crossed we keep doing good on that front. We actually have our own in-house testing facility for well testing. It's more for our plastics company. All of our guys undergo biannual testing, and they're all qualified to the AWS B2.4 standard. But the same welding that goes into plastic works is the same welding that goes into the stormwater systems, bandits, and Bandalong booms. So it's just one of our quality control methods that we have here. Now onto our Stormax. These are more for our stormwater drainage. You really don't want to put these in a live channel. I know this kind of looks like a standard live channel stream, but unlike the Bandalong, these will catch anything that comes down the channel. And this channel is 100% storm drainage. This is actually south of Atlanta, down a little town called Griffin. But it will capture floatables, non-floatables, and anything that comes down. These are come in either 304 or 316 stainless steel, again, depending on which type of water application you have. And they also come in a 1-piece or a 2-piece model. And the difference being, if you can imagine this entire hub being just one unit and the bag connecting directly to it, that's the 1-piece unit. It anchors directly into the concrete. And those are typically for our smaller sizes, like 24-inch diameter and under, because those bags are manually taken off and disposed of or emptied out. Basically, you would just, we have what I call a large worm clamp that goes along the outer lip here. Basically, just disconnect or loosen the bolt. The net slides right off. It's carried up to be dumped out. The black net that you see here is the same HDPE material that's used for our bandits and our Bandalongs. And they do have a very, very long service life. Our first installation of this unit was in 2008 down in Atlanta, and they're still using the same net that we provided back then. So as long as these nets aren't just used and abused, they do have a very, very long service life. But going back to the models, the 2-piece is typically for above 24 inches diameter, and they are for being cleaned out with a piece of equipment. So these 2 units that you're looking at here, these are the 2-piece units. If you can imagine this first metal hub, it connects into the concrete, and then there's a secondary metal sleeve that you can just kind of see here. It slides over the first hub, and then it's connected via a bolt or T-pin, tab, whatever you may have. These typically come with stainless bolts, but they lost one, so they of course use the T-pin here. So the way that these are cleaned out is you would just pop the 2 bolts or T-pins out. They all have lifting eyes along the top. You simply just hook up whatever piece of equipment that you have to it. It's lifted out, and there's a you can either dump the bag out through the mouth of it, or there's a rope just on the other end here that you can't really see. You can simply just pull on the rope. The net comes untied, all the trash dumps out, you tie it back up and slip it right back on and connect it via the bolt. So these are also very, very easy to maintain as well. This kind of talked about a little bit of we talked about capture deploys floatables and non-floatables. We do have the reusable HDPE that I talked about. We also have a disposable. This says nylon. We've recently had to change over to a polyester material because of material shortage due to COVID, but turns out the polyester material is actually superior to the nylon because it has a natural UV inhibitor in it as well, unlike the nylon. So the disposable nets are actually a better option. The only problem with those is they have 5mm openings, which is about the size of a cigarette butt. And that is for states that have certain netting requirements like California. All of their nets have to be 5mm and under. The reusable HDPE is a 25mm or 1-inch opening, and this is the one that we recommend for the majority, if not all of the installs, unless they have a specific reason for needing a smaller net. The HDPE ones just outlast pretty much anything, and due to the hole size, they have a much better flow-through rate than the other options. Highly effective for first flush and captures gross pollutants as small as 5mm. Also assists in sediment fallout and collection. Another thing a little bit different about these is, of course, they slow down the hydrology of the water. And the one thing you get when you slow down water is sediment fallout. So some of our customers, they are specifically after just the trash. They also have to deal with the sediment. But on the other hand, we have other customers that are going not only for the trash, but also the nutrients in the water. And one of the easiest ways to get nutrients out is to just scoop it out in the sediment. So these do a great job with that. And a lot of these pictures, you'll see the units in a weir configuration like this. We prefer them to see them. If you have the ability to put them in a weir, that's great, simply because going to the end of the pipe can cause issues upstream from the pipe, depending on which model you go with. And I'll show you a few more pictures of that. But basically, putting them in a weir situation just allows an overflow of the water in case the bags get full. Our standard sizes are 18, 24, 30, 36, and 60. These are just standard DOT sizes. We can build them basically down to about 8 inches diameter up to the largest one that we've quoted was for City of Miami at 96 inches or 8 feet. So we can pretty much do anything in between. Again, assist with sediment fallout. This will be common with these types of units in the weir wall configuration. And this structure right here was actually created specifically for sediment fallout. So all the sediment comes over, falls out in this area. They back their trucks down, scoop it all out, and they have our Stormex here on the end to capture any of the floating debris that got by. The 2 pieces, again, they all come with the lift out hubs, and this is basically just showing how strong the nets are, being almost completely full with wet organics and debris. And these are a couple different kind of sub models to the 1-piece and the 2-piece. If you do have to go to the end of pipe for your install, we fully recommend the half pipe weir unit for the same reason as the weir wall. Once the bag gets full, it allows the water somewhere to overflow, so you have next to zero flooding risk with this unit. Since we've been installing them, we've had zero issues with flooding with this unit, as well as the full capture unit here on the right. But this is just kind of another safeguard against flooding out. But again, states like California have outfall requirements that require 100% capture rate. So we do have the full capture unit, and they do work great. They will capture any and everything that comes down the channel. The only thing you have to worry about now is it is more of a maintenance item. So regardless what the weather is, if you've had consecutive days of rain and this bag gets full, somebody has to go down and maintain it, because even though they have vents on top, bottom, left, and right sides, they can clog, and especially if it gets completely full, it can clog up the whole mouth, and you will flood out whatever in at the other end of the pipe. Thankfully, again, we haven't had to deal with any of those issues. And the unit you see down here on the bottom, this is just a custom unit. We can adapt them to a huge variety of structures. We've built several models with these weir gates. We've built several weir walls similar to this unit here. We've used stainless steel bar grating instead of concrete. So it's just a variety of different ways that these can be attached. The story of the next couple pictures here, this is in St. Louis. Just downstream from here, where you can't see, the locals have what they considered a pristine lake. And they knew about the inevitable amount of trash that comes off of Walmart parking lots, and they didn't want that trash getting in their lake. So of course they fought the city for getting this Walmart built. Of course, Walmart won. They got their way. But what they did is they decided to install 3 Stormexes. I want to say it was a 48, a 36, and an 18. These 2 guys installed them. This guy stood and watched the whole time. And it only took them about an hour and a half. All of these Stormexes are typically very, very easy to install, especially if you're going directly into concrete. They simply just slide into the mouth of the pipe and bolt in place. We can either bolt them from the inside, or they can be bolted from the outside, depending on the size of the pipe. Usually if it's a smaller diameter pipe, you can't really get a hammer drill on the inside of it. So we'd have to go through the outside in. So we do have different options for that. But I think this was the 48. This was the 18. And I think that was either another picture of the 48 or the 36. But again, those 2 guys installed all 3 of these units in about an hour and a half. So they are very, very easy to install. It just requires basically just a hammer drill and standard concrete bolts. And that's it. I will go back if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Dustin. I pulled up chat, so we'll see if anyone has any questions from our online audience. Of course, if they would like to unmute themselves, feel free to ask a question as well. Does anyone in the live audience have any questions for Dustin?
Ballpark, what is the cost of doing like the band?
We have one question. What's the ballpark price for the Bandalong?
So for
Oh, the Bandit. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
No problem. I can just give you a price range pretty much for all of them, just so you have a reference. So for the Bandits, these typically start at about 30 to 35,000, and that price includes us sending one of our technicians out to assist your crew with installation. So if you were to purchase any subsequent traps, we could take the cost of the technician coming out. So it would be a little bit less, but about 30 to 35 is what we've seen, simply because a lot of your cost is going to be boom length. And most of these channels are pretty standard, between about 20 to 30 feet wide, and they require about the same amount of boom. So that's pretty much the range that we've seen them for the handful that we've installed here lately. And the Bandalongs, they have a huge range because we have 3 different sizes of them. But for the small size here that you're looking at, these typically start at about 165,000, and that includes installation, us doing the installation, trap, delivery, everything. And then it's not uncommon for us to have to come out a time or two after you've gotten a couple of rain events, because you really never know how the trap is going to sit until it's been through a few events. So we commonly will have to come out and do some tweaks to the cables, to the booms, whatever it may be. And that all of that's factored into the cost as well. So that way we can make sure it's set right, and of course you're happy with it. And then that ranges from about 165 up to 300 plus for our larger size traps. But again, a lot of your cost is going to be booms. So the smaller the channel, less it'll be, of course. But then our Stormexes, these have a wide range as well, just because we have the 1-piece, 2-piece, and the different sizes. But our common sizes for like our 18s to 24s, which is what we do the most, are about 6,500 to about 8,500. And then they just kind of go up from there, depending on size. And unfortunately, a lot of that is just due to the stainless steel market the way it is now. It is absolutely all over the place, but that's about what we see, about 6,500 to, on the upper end, about 15,000 for our standard sizes, and some for a little bit of our larger sizes.
All right, thank you, Dustin. I still don't see any questions in chat. Do we have any other live questions for Dustin?
I've got one.
Oh, yes.
Can the Bandit sit on a dry bed for an extended period of time, just like in a drought condition?
Yes, actually, the Bandalong, again, these were originated in Australia, and they were built to actually sit in dry creek and channel beds for pretty much the majority of the year. They have a what we call a sacrificial runner along the bottom of the boom, which is basically about 1.5 inches of HDPE that just would be able to just sit on the dirt or on rocks, whatever it may be. And the same thing carried over to the Bandit when we designed it as well. It has the same runners on the bottom. So it does not hurt it whatsoever to sit in dry channels. One of the installs we have down in Savannah, Georgia, is in a tidally influenced channel. And for half the day, it sits in a completely dry channel until the tide comes in. So.
Any other questions from our audience?
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
For, I think it was the Storm X, how long does it take, I guess, to take it apart to be able to empty it out and put it back? I know you said it's about an hour and 30 minutes for installation.
Yeah, so the Storm X's are really, really quick. So the process, just say, for instance, somebody's going down to clean this unit out, they would basically just come down, disconnect. If they were using a piece of equipment, they would come pull these 2 pins out, and then just hook whatever equipment up to the lifting eye here, and they would just lift it right over to their truck, dump truck, on-site garbage bin, whatever it may be. Simply untie this end of the bag. I don't know. Let me see if I could find. So you see the rope here on the end, that can just be untied, all their trash be dumped out, and then tied back up, and then just lifted back over and set back in place. So maybe 10, 15 minutes per unit, if that, but once your crew got used to it, they could do it probably much quicker. And they are much quicker with our smaller units that are just 1-piece units. For our 24 inches and under, you simply just disconnect the net from the hub here, and that's just held on with this worm clamp. There's a bolt You simply just unbolt the bolt and the net slides right off. You carry the bag up, dump it all out, and then you just reattach the net. So pretty quick, between 5 and 15 minutes.
Okay. And I have another part to my question.
Sure.
What type of equipment do you need to be able to lift it?
Usually, whatever piece of equipment that has if it has the reach to get to wherever it's at. But typically, our customers will use a boom trucks or backhoes are very common. These bags can get up to maybe 300-400 pounds. So whatever you have that can lift about that.
Okay.
And then as far as and just as for clean out times or maintenance for like maintenance schedules and things, we always tell people that the traps, regardless if it's the Stormexes, the Bandits, or the Bandalongs, after every significant rain event of 1 inch or more, the traps at least need to be checked, because depending on the rain event, you'll get varying amounts of trash. And usually once our customers have had them for a couple of months, they kind of can see what kind of schedule they can be on. So and in some parts of the year, they may be cleaning it out, once a week. Other times of the year, they may be cleaning it out every other week or every third week or something like that. But at least after every significant rain event of 1 inch or more, they at least have to be checked on.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, sorry, we lost you for just a minute there, Dustin. Our internet went down briefly.
Okay. Okay, what did you not hear? What is the last thing you heard?
Yeah, just the tail ends.
Gotcha. So I was talking about the maintenance of the units and maintenance schedules.
Yeah.
So for all the Stormex, the Bandits, and the Bandalongs, we recommend that they be checked after every significant rain event of 1 inch or more. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be cleaning it out every time that it rains, but they at least need to be checked because you'll get varying amounts of trash after each rain event. So what we've commonly seen is our customers will, at some parts of the year, they could be cleaning it out one time a week. And then other times of the year, it could be every other week or every third week. We have some of our customers that if they're in an area that really doesn't get a lot of rain, they may only clean it out, once a month, twice a month. But in other parts where they get a lot of rain, they'll be cleaning it out more. So it really just depends on where you're at and the types of debris that you get. And then after a few months, our customers will kind of understand the types of debris loads that they're getting and can kind of schedule a lot better when they're going to be cleaning it out.
All right, thank you, Dustin.
Sure.
All right, any other questions online or in person? I think we've got some crickets, so.
Well, if any questions come up afterwards, feel free to just give me a call, shoot me an email. Either way, I try to be as accessible as possible. The best way to reach me is my cell phone. So anything that comes up after this, feel free to shoot me an email, whatever works best.
Perfect. And I believe your contact information I've put into our calendar events, but if anyone has any questions or needs any help accessing anything, feel free to email me, Rebecca Dallin. That's rebecca.dallin@okc.gov. So. Is that a question? Oh, okay. All right. Well, as a reminder, certificates of attendance will be emailed to everyone that has been in attendance. We will have a recording available. If anyone would like to watch that again, just let me know. And thanks everyone for coming. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having us.